more mega PPV to be open for vaccinations. Malaysia, Saudi Arabia to form trade cooperation on commodity sector. Hello there, I'm Brendan Nepal and you're watching Updates at Noon. More mega vaccine dispensing centres, PPV, that can manage more than 2,000 appointments for vaccine recipients daily will be open for the third phase of the National COVID-19 Immunisation Programme, or PICK. Its coordinating minister, Khairi Jamaluddin, said the first mega PPV at the World Trade Center, WTC, Kuala Lumpur, opened yesterday for administering the AstraZeneca vaccine is capable of accommodating 2,468 appointments in a day. Elaborating further, Khairi also said the priority to expand PPV coverage for AstraZeneca vaccine injection in red zone states was also under discussion, as another 1.1 million doses of the vaccine would arrive in Malaysia around May. He said the opening of these PPV only takes a short time and will go hand in hand with the supply of vaccines.
Kita memberi tumpuan kepada negeri merah dan perbincangan dan perancangan sekarang ini sedang berjalan untuk memilih negeri-negeri yang sesuai untuk diberikan PPV AZ secara program sukarela opt-in yang dijalankan seiring ataupun paralel dengan program imunisasi COVID-19 kebangsaan.
Khairi also said that for the first time, the 4 PPV for dispensing the AstraZeneca vaccine used the services of private medical practitioners registered with Protect Health Corps Indira Berhad to provide vaccine injections. Prior to this, all 286,000 doses of AstraZeneca offered under the first phase were fully booked within 3 hours after registration opened on Sunday, subject to certain conditions. Before this, the AstraZeneca vaccine had raised public concerns following reports of incidents of blood clots or thrombosis among recipients. Hari Raya visits in Conditional Movement Control Order CMCO areas in Sarawak is limited to the first 3 days of the festival only. Based on the latest celebration guidelines issued by the Sarawak Islamic Council (SIC) yesterday, the period of visit is between the 1st and 3rd Shawwal, and visitors are only allowed to visit close family members. The Sarawak State Disaster Management Committee (SDMC) decided on Tuesday to allow Aidilfitri celebrations for 7 days in the state from the 1st to 7th Shawwal and limited to close family members only. The SIC, however, retained the SDMC's decision to allow Aidilfitri voluntary prayers at all mosques, surau, musola and premises with SIC approval only, with the attendance limited to the capacity of the premises with physical distancing of 1 meter. Hari Raya visits, Aidilfitri prayers and visiting graves, however, are not permitted in areas under the Enhanced Movement Control Order (EMCO) in the state. Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah said 20 new COVID-19 clusters were reported yesterday, comprising 8 at workplaces, 6 in the community, 2 linked to religious events and 4 in the education sector, including 3 educational institutions under the Education Ministry (KPM). The workplace clusters are Kampung Padang Lalang in Kelantan, Jalan Sawit and Tanjung Kibong in Sarawak, Sri Manjalara in Kuala Lumpur, Persiaran Layar Perak in Johor, Taman Pertama in Perak, Kopitiam Macap Baru in Melaka and Mutiara Bentong in Pahang. Commenting further, Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham said the community clusters meanwhile consists of Kampung Paya Ula, Sungai Mas and Mongkos in Sarawak, Jalan Dato' On in Johor, Tanah Puteh Baru and Makota Height in Pahang. The 3 clusters involving educational institutions under KPM are Taman Medan and Persiaran Setia Prima in Selangor and Jalan Yaakob Latif in Kuala Lumpur, while Jalan Kukup in Johor is the other cluster in the education sector. The Health Director General added that the religion-linked clusters are Seruling Dua Belas in Selangor and Jalan Damai Bakti in Kuala Lumpur. He said 14 clusters, however, ended yesterday, leaving 411 active clusters. Malaysia will soon establish a trade cooperation with Saudi Arabia involving the commodity sector. Plantation Industries and Commodities Minister Datuk Dr. Muhammad Khairuddin Aman Razali said it will involve plantations and agricultural commodities as part of the government's efforts in promoting the country's products and increasing the income of smallholder farmers at various levels. Datuk Dr. Muhammad Khairuddin said the delegation will depart for Saudi Arabia on the 9th of June to discuss several issues including the exports of palm oil and rubber-based products.
Pertama sekali kita akan bincang tentang penubuhan pejabat serantau kita di Jeddah yang sedang dalam proses sekarang, merangkumi 3 sektor. Satu perkayuan di bawah MTC, yang kedua getah di bawah MRC, yang ketiga MPOC sawit. Yang kedua kita akan promo tentang kelebihan toko trienol yang menjadi satu bahan vitamin E yang terbaik yang di dalam sawit kita, untuk kita promo bukan hanya minyak itu untuk dimasak, bukan hanya untuk kosmetik, tapi juga untuk pharmaceutical dan juga untuk kesihatan. Dalam keadaan Saudi Arabia hari ini sedang bergerak ke arah pemakanan kesihatan yang baik. Itu memang hala tuju baru kerajaan Saudi.
Speaking at an event in Putrajaya yesterday, he said both countries will also discuss the opportunities for Malaysia to market the rubber-based furniture that can be used to complete the residential projects in Saudi Arabia. Recipients of Prihatin Special Grant (GKP) who have yet to receive additional payments under the Rakyat's Protection Assistance Package (PERMAI) are advised to check their payment status through the GKP portal. In a statement yesterday, the Communications Division of the Inland Revenue Board (LHD) and Chief Executive Officer's Office said that for GKP recipients with credit failure status, they are required to update the details of their bank accounts immediately so that payments can be made. According to the statement, bank account information can be updated from 5 to 19 May. The statement also said the GKP recipient should ensure the updated bank account is active and uses a personal savings account number or personal current account number. The statement added that recipients are encouraged to open a new bank account, GKP recipient's personal savings bank account, and to update the GKP portal using the new account number to avoid recurring credit failures. It said the payment dates of the additional GKP (PERMAI) to the updated bank account would be informed from time to time, and inquiries and related feedback can be forwarded to the LHDN through its Hasil Care Line, Hasil Live Chat, and the feedback form on its official portal. Solid waste collection has increased to almost 33,000 tons during Ramadan this year, compared to 27,000 tons in the same period last year. According to Alam Flora's Deputy General Manager Operations, Raja Kamal Azizul Raja Ibrahim said the reopening of Ramadan bazaars was one of the main contributing factors to the increase of almost 20% in solid waste collection. Raja Kamal said when purchases are made in excess of household consumption, they will end up in the bin, and that was the reason he felt has contributed to the increase in solid waste collection this year. He said Ramadan buffets organised at restaurants and hotels around Kuala Lumpur also contributed to the increase in solid waste collection. He said various initiatives and campaigns should be continued to give awareness to the community to plan their food purchases to avoid wastage. Earlier, Raja Kamal distributed 1,000 packets of bubur lambuk and 25 containers to be used to fill recycled cooking oil for Ramadan Bazaar traders at the Surau Jumaat Al-Hikmah compound, Beringin Jinjang Utara People's Housing Project in conjunction with the Love Food, Hate Waste campaign. 3 men were injured, including one who nearly lost his leg after a fire extinguisher exploded at a premise in Jalan Husin Nordin, Taman Pearl, Ipoh, Perak yesterday. It is learned that the incident occurred while the fire extinguisher was being refilled before it suddenly exploded. The state's Fire and Rescue Department Operations Center in a statement said it received an emergency call at 5:09 p.m. In the incident, 2 people suffered minor injuries while another victim suffered severe injuries to his right leg. The fire and rescue personnel who arrived at the scene were instructed to provide first aid and handed over the victim to the Ministry of Health Malaysia for further action. The statement also said that the operation ended at 5:39 p.m. In our foreign segment, India court issues directions for managing oxygen supply. Stay with us. Now, a court in India's capital, New Delhi, has become the last hope for many hospitals struggling to get oxygen for COVID-19 patients as supplies run dangerously short while government officials bicker over who is responsible. A 2-judge bench of the Delhi High Court has been holding almost daily video conferences to hear petitions from hospitals invoking India's constitutional right to protection of life. Lawyers say the court's intervention has saved lives. Last week, with barely a few hours of oxygen left for over 100 virus patients at Saroj Super Speciality Hospital, a new supply is nowhere in sight. Hospital authorities approached the Delhi court at a last resort for help. The judges ordered the Delhi state government to immediately arrange supplies. The shortage of medical oxygen has plagued the city of 20 million people for about 2 weeks, with unprecedented scenes of patients dying on hospital beds, in ambulances, and in car parks outside, gasping for air. As the health system buckles, the city says it needs 976 tons of medical oxygen daily, but gets less than 490 tons allocated by the federal government. Representatives of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government, which is managing supplies nationally, have told the court they were doing all that is possible and blamed the Delhi government, run by a rival party, for politicizing the issue. Both governments, federal and that of Delhi, are facing criticism for not being adequately prepared for the surge in infections. Since late April, some of the city's best hospitals have asked the court for help. Still, scenes of desperation, urgency and frustration play out every day. On another note, India received more COVID-19 medical supplies from Australia yesterday to ramp up its fight against the raging pandemic that has infected nearly 20 million people across the country. An aircraft carrying 1,056 ventilators and 43 oxygen concentrators landed in New Delhi's Indira Gandhi International Airport. As countries around the world rush to help India alleviate the crisis, top scientific advisor to the Indian government warned yesterday the country would inevitably face further waves of the coronavirus pandemic. The government's principal scientific advisor, K. Vijay Raghavan, warned that even after infection rates subside, the country should be ready for a third wave. With hospitals scrambling for beds and oxygen in response to a deadly second surge in infections, the World Health Organization said in a weekly report that India accounted for nearly half the coronavirus cases reported worldwide last week and a quarter of the deaths. Health Ministry data showed deaths rose by a record 3,780 during the past 24 hours, and daily infections rose by 382,315 yesterday. The number has been in excess of 300,000 every day for the past 2 weeks. As India continues to struggle with the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, some of its neighboring countries such as Nepal, Thailand and Laos in South Asia are also seeing huge spikes in case numbers, prompting new rounds of lockdowns and travel bans. Nepal, which borders India's northeast, reported more than 8,600 COVID-19 infections yesterday, the highest single-day spike since the pandemic started. The country has reported a total of 359,610 confirmed cases. Due to the relatively backward economic development of Nepal and limited medical treatment capabilities, the surge of infected patients has put tremendous pressure on the local medical system. In order to curb the spread of the pandemic, 45 of the 77 counties in Nepal have adopted different levels of lockdowns as of the afternoon of Tuesday. Meanwhile, Thailand reported more than 2,000 confirmed cases in the past 24 hours of Wednesday, bringing the national total nearly to 75,000. The raging pandemic has forced thousands of Thai hotels to close their doors, hitting much the country's hotel industry, one of pillars of Thailand's tourism industry. As for Laos, before 20th April this year, the country had only 60 positive cases nationwide. However, since then, there have been a number of illegal immigrants from Thailand, leading to a continued emergence of local confirmed cases. The number of infections in Laos has reached 1,072, as 46 new cases were reported on Wednesday. Welcome back. Two American tourists have been found guilty of murdering a policeman near their Rome hotel in 2019 and have been sentenced to life in prison. Finnegan Lee Elder, who was 19 at the time, has admitted to stabbing Mario Cecielo Rega in the early hours of 26 July 2019, while his friend Gabriel Christian Natal Hyoth, then 18, was tussling with another police officer. However, the pair said they acted in self-defense and thought the two police officers, who were not in uniform at the time, were thugs out to get them after a botched attempt to buy drugs. The court rejected their version of events and handed down the toughest punishment possible in Italy. Elder and Natal Hyoth were in Rome on holiday and tried to buy drugs from a local dealer in a tourist hotspot. They told the court that they were cheated, but managed to snatch a bag off an intermediary as he tried to get away. They subsequently agreed to meet the dealer again to get their money back in exchange for the bag, but instead, the two plain-clothed policemen showed up. Elder testified that the pair immediately attacked them, forcing him and Natal Hyoth to defend themselves. Police said Cecielo was not armed at the time and was stabbed 11 times by Elder with a blade that he had brought with him from the United States. The death of Cecielo shook Italy, and there was initial disbelief that two U.S. teenagers could be responsible for such violence. Facebook's independent oversight board yesterday upheld a ban on former U.S. President Donald Trump, while ordering further review of the case in a decision with a potentially far-reaching impact on the regulation of online speech. Now, the board, whose decisions are binding on the leading social network, said Trump created an environment where serious risk of violence was possible, with his comments regarding the 6 January rampage by his supporters at the U.S. Capitol. While endorsing the initial ban, the panel also determined that it was not appropriate for Facebook to impose the indeterminate and standardless penalty of indefinite suspension. Within 6 months of this decision, Facebook must re-examine the arbitrary penalty it imposed on 7 January and decide the appropriate penalty. The board invited Facebook to either impose a time-limited suspension or account deletion. Facebook's Vice President of Global Affairs and Communications, Nick Clegg, welcomed Wednesday's ruling and said Facebook will review its options. Trump was suspended from Facebook and Instagram after posting a video during the deadly storming of the Capitol by fired-up supporters challenging his election loss. The Trump-Facebook case had been intensely followed for its repercussions for social networks seeking to curb misinformation and abusive content while remaining open to political discourse. In the UK, the United Kingdom is sending 2 Royal Navy patrol vessels to monitor protests in waters around Jersey's main port amid a fishing rights row with France, after France suggested it could cut power supplies to the British Channel island of Jersey. The HMS Seven and HMS Tamar are being deployed to the area to conduct maritime security patrols. The HMS Severn has already departed and headed towards the water of Jersey's port of St. Helier, while HMS Tamar will follow later. The Jersey government has introduced a new fishing rules under the UK-EU Trade and Cooperation Agreement (TCA), which require French boats to show they have a history of fishing in Jersey waters. However, French authorities said new technical measures for fishing off the Channel Islands had not been communicated to the EU, rendering them null and void. It was previously reported that about 100 French fishing vessels would sail to Jersey's port today as part of a protest against the new rules. Colombians staged mass marches around the country yesterday to mark the 8th day of anti-government protests, with a long list of demands after violence worsened overnight in the capital, Bogota. The protests, originally called in opposition to a now-cancelled tax reform plan, are now demanding the government to take action to tackle poverty, police violence and inequalities in the health and education system. Demonstrations and lawmaker opposition led to the tax reforms withdrawals and the resignation of the finance minister. International organizations have warned against police violence, which is so far linked to just under half of 24 confirmed deaths, mainly of protesters. Growing poverty, which rose to 42.5% of the population last year amid coronavirus lockdowns, has aggravated long-standing inequalities and reversed some recent development gains. The number of Colombians living in extreme poverty grew by 2.8 million people last year. President Ivan Duque has said the government will create space to listen to citizens and develop concrete proposals, similar to overtures offered to protesters following demonstrations in 2019. According to the Human Rights Ombudsman, protests nationwide have resulted in 24 deaths, 15 of them in the western city of Cali. And in sports, Chelsea thrash Real Madrid to reach Champions League final. Stay with us. But first, local football, Perak FC finally snapped its run of winless games in the Super League with a 1-0 victory over Petaling Jaya PJ City FC at the Petaling Jaya City Council Stadium last night. Now, the win has brought a relief to the Bosgoro squad after failing to obtain any victories in the previous 4 matches. Playing in a wet field, both teams were more careful with the ball at their feet and struggled in launching their attacks. The only goal of the game came from Argentinian striker Sergio Aguero in the 26th minute, who knocked the ball into the net past goalkeeper Kalamula Al-Hafiz Madrowi, thus putting Perak FC in the lead. Since recording a 3-2 victory over bottom club UiTM FC on 7 April, Perak FC has lost 3-1 to Selangor FC, drawn 1-1 against Kedah Darul Aman FC, and lost 1-0 to Melaka United and 2-1 to Sabah FC. Perak FC will be fighting against Sri Pahang FC in the next match. In another match, Selangor SC drew 2-2 to the second lowest team in the table, Sri Pahang FC, at the Darul Makmur Stadium in Kuantan. The match, which was delayed for about 15 minutes due to issues with the floodlights in the stadium, saw the Tok Gajah squad stun the visitors through a goal from new import player Manuel Hidalgo in the 48th minute. Selangor FC, however, turned the game around and took the lead through goals from Myanmar import Hein Tet Ong in the 76th minute and Nigerian forward Ifedayo Olusegun in the 87th minute. The effort from the Red Giants, however, came up short as Sri Pahang drew the match at the end of injury time through Abdul Malik Mat Arif to share the spoils. In the mouth-watering UEFA Champions League, goals by Timo Werner and Mason Mount sent Chelsea into a Champions League final showdown with Manchester City as they claimed a 2-0 win over Real Madrid for a 3-1 aggregate triumph at Stamford Bridge early this morning. German striker Werner, who has endured a stuttering first season at Chelsea, put them in control when he nodded in one of the easiest goals of his career in the 28 minutes after fellow German Kai Havertz had struck the bar. Chelsea should have killed the game as they created and wasted a sackload of chances in a dazzling second-half display. But Mount's close range finish in the 86 minutes meant the party could start in earnest. Even with talisman Sergio Ramos back after missing the home leg, Real Madrid were outplayed by Thomas Tuchel's side again as the German coach continued his stunning impact in West London. 13 times European champions Real, who had come through each of their last 3 Champions League semi-final ties, had been second best for much last week's first leg, which ended 1-1. The final in Istanbul will be the second All-English Champions League final in 3 seasons. In tennis, Rafael Nadal put a damper on Carlos Alcaraz's 18th birthday yesterday when he sent his compatriot packing with a 6-1, 6-2 win to advance to the third round of the Madrid Open. The teenager started strong and pushed the world number 2 to break point in the first game, but Nadal held on and managed to break Alcaraz's serve. Meanwhile, Stefanos Tsitsipas also marched into the third round of the Madrid Open with a 6-1, 6-2 second-round win over Benoit Paire yesterday. The win means the Greek has now tied Russia's Andrei Rublev for the most duel-level wins this season at 27 each. That's it from us this afternoon. In our top story, more mega PPP to be open for vaccinations. Tune in to News at 10, coming up at 10 p.m. on my Freeviews Saluran Berita RTM channel 123. You can also stream the channel via YouTube or RTM's Click web portal and mobile app. Thank you for watching. I'm Brenda Lepol. Have a pleasant day.